In today's tutorial, we're going to be discovering the first 3 steps and essential steps to overcoming lower back pain. Now, these are the 3 steps that I use within my face-to-face coaching with lower back pain clients, but also in the online coaching and the online course. And if you want to find out more about the online course or coaching, please do just click down in the description below. You'll see the 2 links down there. And these 3 steps come under the umbrella of understanding your lower back pain. So you may have heard me talk about that before, but we're going to delve a little bit deeper into these 3 steps and talk about consultation, assessment, and evaluation. In step number 1, we're looking at the consultation. And the 2 fundamental things that we're trying to identify are pain triggers and what keeps you pain free. So we're looking at movements, postures, positions, and loads that do either of those. Now, within the consultation, there are 15 standard questions, and if I'm working with you face-to-face or through the online coaching, then I'm able to ask supplementary questions to be able to expand on some of the answers, but we'll come on to that in a second as we start talking about some examples. But what are we trying to do with this consultation? Well, as I've mentioned, we're trying to identify pain triggers and we're trying to identify what keeps you pain free. Now, to go a step beyond that, we're trying to find specific triggers and specific strategies that keep you pain free. Because so many people that I see have seen someone before and they've just been given generic advice. So it could be a combination or all of anything of the following. Strengthen your core. Strengthen your lower back, stretch your hamstrings, stretch your lower back, increase range of movement of your lower back. All of that is just generic advice if they haven't been assessed properly or if they haven't gone through a proper consultation and assessment process. For the very simple reason is not everyone needs to strengthen their core. Hamstrings don't really need to be stretched if you've got back pain. In some respects, a flexible lower back can be more sensitive to pain, but all of this will come out during the consultation and the assessment. So what we're trying to do is find these specific triggers, pain triggers, and find these specific strategies to start putting in place to be able to, first of all, understand the lower back pain and then start reducing it. An example of all of this could be when you sit down, your back pain starts to occur. It starts to happen. You start to experience the pain. And supplementary questions that could come off the back of that is it the posture, or what's your posture like when you sit? What's the seat like that you sit in? Or how long are you sat down before the pain starts to come on? All of these things will start to help identify what we need to be doing. First of all, to identify the trigger, but then what we can start doing as a strategy to be able to overcome that pain. Do we need to change the seat? Do we need to change the posture? Do we need to change the duration at which you're sat? Or do we need to put in strategies in place to break up your sitting? All of these different sorts of things are starting to be understood. So what we can then do is start looking at the strategies. Step 2, the assessment, will add a little bit more flesh to the bone. So we'll start to paint a little bit of a more detailed picture of your lower back pain as we go through the assessment. So again, what we're trying to do here is we're now trying to mechanically look for movements, postures, positions, and loads that are triggering pain, but also strategies that can reduce the pain. So what we will do is we'll continue with the idea of the seated posture. So there are essentially 9 assessments that I take people through, but as with the consultation, what I'm able to do with face-to-face clients and online coaching clients is I'm able to take them through other tests if necessary. It's not always necessary. So the online course, in some respects, is the minimum effective assessments that we need to be able to do, and there's 9 of them. Now, when it comes to someone who sits down and gets lower back pain, we've talked about, is it the posture, is it the seat, or is it the duration? Now, there is an assessment that I take people through that will help identify the posture in which they're using. Is that triggering the pain? So what we would do is we would go through that test, and if that test comes up as a pain, and what we could then start to identify is we're then starting to think, okay, it possibly is the posture that you're in that that is triggering the pain. So what we can do is we can change that posture, and we can add, let's just say, an abdominal brace to it, and then we can retest. And then we can see is, does that pain reduce? If it does reduce or completely eliminates it, we've started to find a strategy, or to started to build a strategy to put in place to be able to reduce that lower back pain. Now, if that comes up as, if you put them in that poor posture and then you try to trigger the pain and it doesn't happen, then it might be that it's the duration at which they're sitting. So there is a test later on that will identify the endurance of this area of the body, the lower back and the core. Now, if that comes out with a poor score, what we can then start to identify is it's not necessarily the posture, it's more the duration. So we can start to build this picture of what is happening within their lower back whilst they are sat down. Now, if none of those trigger it, it could well be the seat that they're sat in. So we need to go about changing the seat. So you can start to see that there is a specific nature to overcoming lower back pain. It's not just a simple case of strengthen your core, strengthen your lower back, make your lower back more flexible, stretch your hamstrings, so on and so forth. That's just generic. That's not going to really get you anywhere. You might get lucky and it gets better, but essentially it's not overcoming the problem. And then step number 3 is to evaluate. So we've just, in some respects, gone through the consultation. If it's face-to-face client or online client, generally I've got the answers in front of me and I'm able to read through them and ask any supplementary questions. So we've got a body of information about your lower back pain. What we've also got are some mechanical assessments of it and whether that's triggered pain or not triggered pain. So what we've got is we've got that body of information or body of knowledge about your lower back pain. What we need to start doing, in some respects, is what I've been talking about already, and starting to evaluate that and trying to find consistent patterns within the information. So if we are going with the seated lower back pain, so we're trying to find consistent information. So as we've talked about, is it the posture? Well, we've found out that they get pain whilst they're sat down, and we've also found out that they get pain whilst they're sat down with a flexed spine, and we've been able to recreate that in the assessment. So we can say with some degree of certainty that there is a postural issue when they're sat down. Now, if they don't get pain in the poor posture, but they do get pain from sat down a long time, then we would have to be thinking about, is it the duration? Is it the endurance of the core? Is it the range of movement of the hip? Or is it just the static nature of the hip? So we need to start evaluating that and testing that. So what we can then start to do is then start building and finding these specific strategies to then start putting in place. And then when we start to put them in place, this will be for a future video because I'll talk more in detail about how you go about putting these strategies in place, because it's not just a simple case of, right, here's your list, go and do it. Sometimes we have to think about, okay, how many do we need to introduce to start with? And then how do we go about either adding more in, or if they're not working, how do we go about changing them? So there is a whole strategy when it comes to actually implementing these strategies and being able to mold and change and work through them. But we can't do any of that if we haven't already got these 3 steps in place already, which is consultation, finding out the information and just gaining that knowledge. Then we need to assess it and see if we need to confirm or deny some of the knowledge that we've been starting to build, and put a little bit more paint and detail into that picture that we're trying to paint, and then finally go through and evaluate and try and find those consistent patterns, but also looking at the specific strategies. And with the specific patterns, we need to be looking at probabilities rather than definite causes as well. Definite causes will start to come out as we look more. But if we can start finding good probabilities, then we're going in the right direction. So hopefully this has given you a better idea of the process that I take people through during face-to-face coaching, online coaching, and the online course. And again, if you want to find out more about the online course and online coaching, just click down in the link below. So many thanks for watching. My name is Chris. I hope this has been helpful. I will speak to you in the next tutorial.